The room was silent. 20 of Earth's top military leaders sat around a large oval table. Their faces were grim. On a big screen at the end of the room, a picture of a smiling young boy was displayed. His name was Tai-Ho Lee, age 8. He was the first human child to die at the hands of aliens. Admiral Jae-won Kim stood up. He was tall and strong, with gray hair and a face marked by years of service. He looked at each person in the room before he spoke. "We are here today because of a great tragedy," he said, his voice deep and firm. "The Zarkon Empire has crossed a line. They have killed an innocent child. This cannot be forgiven." The others nodded. They all felt the same anger and sadness. Captain Soo-min Park, a young woman with short black hair, spoke next. "Sir, what do we know about the attack?" Admiral Kim pressed a button, and the screen changed. It showed a small spaceship. Tai-Ho and his parents were on this ship, he explained. They were on their way to the new human colony on Mars. The Zarkon attacked without warning. They destroyed the ship, killing everyone on board. A low murmur of anger filled the room. General Da Jung Choi, an older man with a thick mustache, slammed his fist on the table. "We must strike back," he shouted. "We cannot let them think they can kill our children and get away with it." Admiral Kim raised his hand for quiet. "I understand your anger, General. We all feel it. But we must be smart about this. The Zarkon Empire is powerful. We need a plan." Outside the military base, crowds of people had gathered. They held signs and chanted. News of Tai-Ho's death had spread quickly. People were scared and angry. They wanted action. Back in the meeting room, Admiral Kim turned to a woman sitting near the end of the table. "Dr. Yoon-hee Kang, what can you tell us about Zarkon technology?" Dr. Kang stood up. She was small and wore thick glasses. "The Zarkon have advanced weapons," she said, "but their shields are weak against our new laser technology. If we can get close enough, we can do a lot of damage." Admiral Kim nodded. He looked thoughtful for a moment, then made a decision. "Here's what we're going to do," he said. "We will send our entire fleet, every ship we have. We'll show the Zarkon the full might of Earth." The room burst into activity. People started talking all at once. Some looked excited, others worried. Lieutenant Jae-ho Lee raised his hand. He was young, maybe in his early 20s. "Sir, what about diplomacy? Shouldn't we try to talk to them first?" Admiral Kim shook his head. "We tried that, Lieutenant. They ignored our messages. They think we're weak. It's time to show them how wrong they are." As the meeting went on, plans were made. Ships were prepared. Weapons were loaded. Earth was going to war. Outside, the crowd had grown larger. People from all over the world were watching the news. They saw images of Earth's mighty ships getting ready for battle. For the first time since the attack, people felt hope. In his office, Admiral Kim looked out the window. He could see the ships in the distance, their engines glowing as they prepared to leave Earth. He thought about Tai-Ho, the little boy who would never grow up. He thought about all the other children on Earth, looking up at the stars with wonder and fear. "We will protect them," he said softly to himself, "no matter the cost." As night fell, the first ships began to rise into the sky. Their engines lit up the darkness, a sign of Earth's power and determination. People watched from their homes, their hearts filled with a mix of pride and worry. The greatest fleet in Earth's history was about to set off on a mission of justice and vengeance. The galaxy would soon learn a powerful lesson. Humanity would not stand by while its children were threatened. The Zarkon Empire had made a terrible mistake, and they were about to face the consequences. As the last ship disappeared into the stars, a hush fell over the planet. The war had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again. The massive starship Seong-Reong hung in Earth's orbit, its sleek metal body reflecting the sun's light. Captain Soo-min Park stood on the bridge, looking out at the stars. Her crew moved quickly around her, getting ready for their long journey. "Captain, all systems are green," said her first officer, Han Jun-Kwan. He was tall and thin, with kind eyes that didn't match the seriousness of his voice. Su Min nodded. Good. We leave in 1 hour. Is everyone on board? Han Jun checked his tablet. Yes, Captain. All crew members are present and accounted for. Su Min took a deep breath. This was it. They were really going to war. She thought about her family back on Earth, about little Tae-ho Lee and his grieving parents. Her hands tightened into fists. Captain, incoming message from Admiral Kim, called out the communications officer. The large screen lit up, showing Admiral Kim's face. He looked tired but determined. Captain Park, are you ready? He asked. Yes, sir, Su Min replied. The Seongraung is prepared for battle. Admiral Kim nodded. Good. Remember, your ship will lead the first attack wave. The fate of humanity rests on your shoulders. Su Min straightened her back. We won't let you down, sir. As the call ended, Su Min turned to her crew. Listen up, everyone. This is not a drill. We are going to face an enemy that has shown no mercy. But we are stronger. We are fighting for our families, for our future. We will not fail. The crew cheered, their voices filled with determination and a hint of fear. Meanwhile, in the ship's engine room, Chief Engineer Min Seo Choi was doing final checks on the new warp drive. It was a marvel of human technology, capable of speeds the Zarkon couldn't match. How's it looking, Chief? Asked a young engineer named Jae Sum Kim. Min Seo patted the huge engine. She's purring like a kitten. Those alien bastards won't know what hit them. Up in the fighter bay, Lieutenant Jae-ho Lee was briefing his squadron. 20 sleek fighters stood ready, their pilots listening closely. Remember your training, Jae-ho said. We're faster and more agile than their ships. Use that to your advantage. And watch each other's backs up there. The pilots nodded, their faces a mix of excitement and nervousness. For many of them, this would be their first real battle. As the hour ticked by, activity on the Seongraung reached a fever pitch. Weapons were checked and double-checked. The medical bay prepared for casualties. In the mess hall, some crew members shared a last meal together, trying to laugh and joke to hide their fears. Finally, the moment arrived. Captain Park's voice came over the ship's speakers. All hands, prepare for departure. May the stars guide us to victory. The Seongraung's engines roared to life. Slowly, the massive ship began to move. All around it, other ships of Earth's fleet were also starting their journey. On Earth, millions of people watched the live broadcast of the fleet's departure. Parents held their children close. Friends and families of the crew members wiped away tears. As the ships cleared Earth's atmosphere, they began to form up. The Seongraung took its place at the head of the formation. Behind it, hundreds of ships fell into position. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in human history. Captain Park looked at the star map. Their destination was far away, deep in Zarkon territory. The journey would take weeks, even with their advanced warp drives. Helm, set course for the Zarkon homeworld, she ordered. Course set, Captain, replied the helmsman. Su Min took one last look at the beautiful blue planet behind them. Then she turned to face the vast darkness of space ahead. Engage warp drive, she said. The stars stretched into lines of light. In a flash, the fleet was gone, leaving Earth behind and racing towards an uncertain future. As they traveled through the silence of space, every person on every ship shared the same thought. They were on a mission of justice, carrying the hopes and fears of all humanity. The Zarkon had started this war by killing an innocent child. Now they would face the full might of Earth's vengeance. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin, and nobody knew how it would end. After weeks of travel, Earth's fleet finally arrived at the edge of Zarkon space. The Seongraung dropped out of warp first, followed by hundreds of other ships. They hung in the darkness, their engines glowing softly. Captain Su Min Park stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the main screen. In the distance, she could see the Zarkon homeworld. It was a large green planet, surrounded by a ring of defensive satellites. "Any sign they've spotted us?" Su-min asked. Her tactical officer, Jun Ho-kang, shook his head. "No, Captain. Our stealth systems are working perfectly. They don't know we're here, yet." Su-min nodded. "Good. Let's keep it that way for now. Get me Admiral Kim." Soon, Admiral Kim's face appeared on the screen. He looked tense but ready. "Captain Park, you're in position. Are you ready to begin?" "Yes, sir," Su-min replied. "Awaiting your orders." Admiral Kim took a deep breath. "Before we attack, we'll give diplomacy one last chance. Ambassador Yoonji Choi will attempt to make contact." On board the diplomatic vessel, Peaceful Sky, Ambassador Choi prepared herself. She was a small woman with a kind face, but her eyes were sharp and determined. This was the most important moment of her career. Opening a channel to the Zarkon leadership, her aide said. Yoonji straightened her back and faced the camera. The screen in front of her flickered to life, showing the Zarkon face. The alien looked surprised. "Greetings," Yoonji said calmly. "I am Ambassador Choi from Earth. We request an immediate audience with your leaders." The Zarkon's eyes narrowed. Its voice was rough when it spoke. "How did you reach our world?" "Our sensors didn't detect you." Yoonji's face remained neutral. "We have our ways. Will you speak with us?" There was a long pause. Then the screen changed, showing a group of Zarkon in what looked like a grand hall. One of them, wearing ornate clothing, stepped forward. "I am High Commander Zax of the Zarkon Empire," it said. "Why have you come to our world uninvited?" Yoonji's voice was firm as she replied. "We are here because of a great wrong done to our people. A human child was killed in an unprovoked attack on a civilian ship. We demand justice." The Zarkon leaders looked at each other. High Commander Zax spoke again. "We know of no such attack. Perhaps it was space pirates or another race." "We have proof it was Zarkon ships," Yoonji said. She pressed a button, and images appeared on the screen. They showed Zarkon warships attacking the small Earth vessel. The Zarkon leaders looked uncomfortable. High Commander Zax's voice grew angry. "This is clearly a misunderstanding. We do not answer to your people. Leave our space at once." Yoonji's eyes hardened. "I'm afraid we can't do that. We came here for justice, and we will have it. Will you take responsibility for this attack and agree to our terms?" "Terms?" Zax growled. "You dare to make demands of the Zarkon Empire?" "We do," Yoonji replied calmly. "End all aggression against human ships, pay reparations to the families of those killed, and turn over those responsible for the attack to face trial on Earth." The Zarkon leaders erupted in angry shouts. High Commander Zax's face twisted with rage. "You insignificant creatures," it roared. "We will never bow to your demands. Leave now or face destruction." Yoonji's face remained calm, but her voice was cold. "I'm sorry you feel that way. Remember, we tried to resolve this peacefully." She cut the transmission. The bridge of the Peaceful Sky was silent for a moment. Then, Yoonji turned to her aide. "Contact Admiral Kim. Tell him diplomacy has failed." Back on the Seongryong, Captain Park received the message. She looked at her crew, seeing the determination in their eyes. "All hands," she said, her voice ringing through the ship. "Prepare for battle. The Zarkon have made their choice. Now they will face the consequences." As alarms began to sound throughout the fleet, the Earth ships moved into attack formation. The Zarkon homeworld loomed ahead, its defenses now coming to life as they detected the human fleet. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin. The space around the Zarkon homeworld exploded into chaos. Earth's ships moved forward, their engines blazing. The Zarkon defenses came to life, filling the sky with energy beams and missiles. On the bridge of the Seongryong, Captain Su-min Park barked orders. "All ships, engage at will. Fighters, launch now. In the fighter bay, Lieutenant J-Ho Lee climbed into his ship. His heart was racing, but his hands were steady. Eagle Squadron, let's show these aliens what we can do. 20 fighters shot out of the Seong Realm like angry hornets. They flew in perfect formation, diving towards the Zarkon defense satellites. Jaiho's voice crackled over the radio. Remember your training. Hit hard and fast. The human fighters weaved through the storm of Zarkon fire. Their smaller size made them hard to hit. Jaiho lined up his first target, a large satellite that was firing at the Earth fleet. Eagle 1, Fox 2. He shouted, launching a missile. It streaked across space and slammed into the satellite. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but the flash was bright enough to make Jaiho squint. All around him, his squadron was doing the same. Zarkon defenses were exploding left and right. But the aliens were fighting back hard. Eagle 3, watch your 6, Jaiho yelled. But he was too late. A Zarkon beam caught one of his pilots, turning the fighter into a ball of fire. Jaiho gritted his teeth. Keep it together, Eagles. We've got a job to do. Back on the Seongryong, Captain Park watched the battle unfold. The main view screen was a chaos of explosions and moving ships. Status report, she demanded. Her tactical officer, Jun Ho, responded quickly. We've destroyed 30% of their outer defenses, Captain, but we're taking heavy fire. The Jakarta and the New Delhi have been hit hard. Su Min nodded grimly. Tell them to fall back. We'll cover them. She turned to her weapons officer. Target their main defense station. Fire everything we've got. The Seongryong shuddered as it launched a barrage of missiles and energy beams. They watched as the attacks converged on a massive Zarkon station. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the station erupted in a massive explosion. Cheers erupted on the bridge. But their celebration was short-lived. A new wave of Zarkon ships appeared, rising from the planet's surface. Incoming, Junho shouted. At least 100 enemy fighters. Su Min's mind raced. They hadn't expected this many. All ships, Titan formation. Fighters, returned to defend the fleet. In space, Jaiho heard the order. He looked at the oncoming wave of Zarkon ships and swallowed hard. Eagles, you heard the captain. Let's go home. As the human fighters raced back, the Zarkon ships swarmed after them. Energy beams crisscrossed space. More human fighters exploded. Jaiho's ship rocked as a beam grazed his wing. Warning lights flashed in his cockpit. This is Eagle 1, unhit but still flying. He pushed his damaged fighter to its limits, zigzagging to avoid more fire. Around him, he could see other Earth ships taking hits. The Zarkon were pressing their advantage. On the Seongryong, alarms were blaring. Hull breach on Deck 7. Someone shouted. Captain Park held onto her chair as the ship shook. Seal it off. Redirect power to forward shields. She looked at the battle raging around them. The initial success of their attack was fading. The Zarkon were fighting with a ferocity they hadn't expected. For a moment, doubt crept into Su Min's mind. Had they underestimated the Zarkon? Was this mission doomed to fail? She shook her head, pushing the thoughts away. No, they couldn't fail. They were fighting for Earth, for justice, for little Jaiho Lee and all the other innocent lives lost. All ships, she called out, her voice strong and clear. Push forward. We didn't come all this way to give up now. For Earth. The human fleet responded, their ships surging forward with renewed determination. The battle was far from over, and Captain Su Min Park was determined to win, no matter the cost. The battle raged on. Earth's ships fought bravely, but the Zarkon were strong. Suddenly, the alien fleet split into two groups. One group kept fighting Earth's main fleet. The other group flew towards Earth's weaker ships at the back. Captain Su Min Park saw this on her screen. Her eyes went wide. They're going for our support ships, she shouted. The support ships carried extra fuel, weapons, and medical supplies. If the Zarkon destroyed them, Earth's fleet would be in big trouble. Su-min had to think fast. All fighters protect the support ships, she ordered. In his damaged fighter, Lieutenant Jai-ho Lee heard the order. He was tired and scared, but he knew what he had to do. "Eagles, follow me," he called to his team. The fighters turned and flew towards the support ships. Jai-ho saw a Zarkon ship aiming at a fuel tanker. He fired his last missile. It hit the alien ship, which exploded in a ball of fire. But there were too many Zarkon ships. They fired strange, green beams at Earth's ships. Where the beams hit, the ship's metal began to melt. "What is that?" Jai-ho gasped. He'd never seen weapons like this before. On the Seong-ryong, Jun-ho, the tactical officer, looked worried. "Captain, the Zarkon are using some kind of new weapon. Our shields can't stop it." Su-min gripped her chair tightly. This was bad. Very bad. Suddenly, a huge explosion rocked the ship. Su-min fell to the floor. Alarms blared everywhere. "We've been hit," someone yelled. "Engine room is on fire." Su-min got up, her head spinning. "Put out that fire," she ordered. "Get our engines back online." In the engine room, Chief Engineer Min Seo-choi and his team fought the flames. The room was full of smoke. It was hard to breathe. "We need to restart the main power core," Min Seo shouted. He ran to a big machine and started pressing buttons. The machine sparked and sputtered. Min Seo coughed in the smoke. He had to get it working, or the ship would be a sitting duck. Back on the bridge, Su-min watched helplessly as more Earth ships were hit. The Zarkon's new weapons were tearing through their defenses. "Captain," Jun-ho said quietly, "we've lost contact with the Jakarta and the New Delhi. I think they're gone." Su-min closed her eyes for a moment. So many good people lost. But she couldn't give up. "Keep fighting," she told her crew. "We can still win this." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure if it was true. The Zarkon seemed to have endless ships, and their new weapons were too strong. In space, Jai-ho and the other fighters were running out of missiles. They had to use their small guns now, which didn't do much against the big Zarkon ships. "Eagle 3, look out," Jai-ho yelled, but it was too late. Another of his pilots was hit by a green beam. The fighter melted away in seconds. Jai-ho felt sick. He'd lost so many friends today. "Eagles, fall back to the fleet," he ordered. They couldn't do any more out here. As the fighters returned, Su-min saw how few were left. Less than half of Earth's fighters had survived. Suddenly, Admiral Kim's face appeared on her screen. He looked tired and worried. "Captain Park," he said, "we're taking too many losses. We need to regroup." Su-min nodded sadly. "Yes, sir. What are your orders?" Admiral Kim sighed. "Tell all ships to fall back. We need to come up with a new plan." As Su-min gave the order to retreat, she felt a mix of anger and sadness. They had come so far, fought so hard, and now they had to run away. But as she watched her battered fleet turn and fly away from the Zarkon world, she made a promise to herself. This wasn't over. They would come back stronger. They would find a way to beat the Zarkon. For Earth, for justice, for little Tae-ho Lee. The battle was lost, but the war was far from over. Earth's fleet limped away from the Zarkon homeworld. Many ships were damaged. Some were lost forever. The mood was dark and heavy. On the Seong-ryong, Captain Su-min Park called a meeting. Her officers gathered in a small room. Their faces showed how tired and worried they were. "We need a new plan," Su-min said. "Any ideas?" For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a voice came from the back of the room. "I might have something." Everyone turned to look. It was Dr. Yoon-hee Kang, the chief scientist. She was small and quiet, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "Tell us, Doctor," Su-min said. Yoon-hee stepped forward. I've been studying the data from the battle. I think I know how the Zarkon's new weapon works. She tapped a screen, and a picture of the green beam appeared. It's not just a laser. It's a kind of unmaking ray. It breaks the bonds between atoms. The room was silent. Everyone was trying to understand what this meant. Junho, the tactical officer, spoke up. Can we stop it? Yoonhee smiled. Better. I think we can turn it against them. She explained her plan. It was risky and complicated, but if it worked, it could change everything. As Yoonhee talked, hope began to grow in the room. Maybe they weren't beaten after all. When she finished, Sumin stood up. This could work, but it's dangerous. We'll need volunteers. Every hand in the room went up. Sumin felt proud of her crew. They were brave and ready to fight. Okay, she said. Let's get to work. For the next few days, the fleet was busy. Yoonhee and her team built a special device. It would capture the Zarkon's green beam and send it back at them. Engineers worked day and night to fix the damaged ships. In the fighter bays, pilots trained for a new kind of battle. Lieutenant Jae-ho Lee learned to fly his ship in a way he never had before. It was hard and scary, but he knew it was important. Finally, the day came. The fleet was ready. It was time to face the Zarkon again. Captain Park stood on the bridge of the Seongryong. She looked at her crew. They were nervous, but determined. This is it, she said. Everything we fought for comes down to this moment. Are you ready? They all nodded. Sumin took a deep breath and gave the order. All ships set course for the Zarkon homeworld. Maximum warp. The stars stretched into lines as the fleet jumped to warp speed. They were going back to finish what they started. As they flew, Sumin thought about Earth, about the families waiting for news, about little Tae-ho Lee, whose death had started all this. We won't let you down, she whispered. Hours later, they dropped out of warp near the Zarkon planet. The alien fleet was waiting for them. They look confident, Junho said. They think this will be easy. Sumin smiled grimly. Let's prove them wrong. All ships begin attack pattern Delta. The Earth fleet split into 3 groups. 2 groups flew straight at the Zarkon. The third group, led by the Seongryong, hung back. The Zarkon took the bait. They fired their green beams at the attacking Earth ships. Now, Sumin shouted. Yoonhee activated her device. It sent out a pulse of energy. Suddenly, the green beams changed direction. They turned back towards the Zarkon ships. On the main screen, Sumin watched as the alien ships began to melt and break apart. The Zarkon seemed confused. They didn't know what was happening. It's working. Someone cheered. But Sumin knew it wasn't over yet. Keep focused, she said. We still have a long fight ahead. As Earth's ships pressed their advantage, Sumin thought about what would happen next. Even if they won today, there would be hard choices to make. But for now, she had a battle to win. And this time, Earth would not be denied. The space around the Zarkon homeworld was chaos. Earth's ships fought with new strength. The Zarkon fleet was in disarray, their own weapons turned against them. On the bridge of the Seongryong, Captain Sumin Park watched the battle unfold. Keep pressing forward, she ordered. Don't let up. Lieutenant Jae-ho Lee flew his fighter through the mess of ships. He saw a big Zarkon ship trying to escape. Not today, he said, chasing after it. Jae-ho fired his guns. The Zarkon ship's engines exploded. It started to fall towards the planet below. Back on the Seongryong, Junho, the tactical officer, shouted, Captain, the Zarkon fleet is retreating. Sumin leaned forward. Are you sure? Yes, Mom. They're running away. A cheer went up on the bridge, but Sumin didn't join in. She knew this wasn't over yet. Open a channel to the Zarkon leadership, she ordered. Soon, the face of High Commander Zax appeared on the screen. He looked angry and scared. Are you ready to surrender? Sumin asked. Zack snarled. Never. We will fight to the last ship. Su Min shook her head. Look around you. Your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are gone. If we wanted to, we could destroy your whole planet right now. Zack's eyes widened. He hadn't thought of that. Su Min continued, but we're not like you. We don't kill innocent people. So I'll ask one more time. Will you surrender? There was a long silence. Then Zack lowered his head. Yes, he said quietly. We surrender. Su Min nodded. Good. Prepare to receive our diplomats. We have much to discuss. As the call ended, the bridge erupted in cheers. People were hugging and crying. They had won. Su Min felt tears in her eyes too. But she knew their job wasn't done yet. Over the next few days, Earth's diplomats worked out a peace treaty with the Zarkon. The aliens agreed to pay for the damage they had caused. They promised never to attack humans again. The Zarkon leaders who had ordered the attack on Tai Ho Li's ship were arrested. They would face trial on Earth for their crimes. As the fleet prepared to return home, Su Min stood in front of her crew. I'm proud of all of you, she said. You fought bravely and well. Thanks to you, the galaxy is a safer place. The journey back to Earth was long, but full of hope. When they finally arrived, they were greeted as heroes. Millions of people cheered as the ships landed. In a quiet ceremony, Admiral Kim presented medals to the families of those who had died in the battle. When he got to Tai Ho Li's parents, he paused. Your son's death was a tragedy, he said softly. But it woke us up to the dangers out there. Because of him, we were ready when the real threat came. He saved us all. Taeho's mother cried as she took the medal. His father stood tall, proud of his son's unintended sacrifice. Weeks later, Su Min visited a new memorial in Seoul. It was a statue of a little boy looking up at the stars. At the base were the names of everyone who had died in the war. As she laid flowers at the statue's feet, Su Min thought about everything that had happened. The loss, the pain, the hard-won victory. We'll keep watching the stars, she said quietly. We'll be ready if anyone else tries to hurt us. But we'll also look for new friends out there. That's the best way to honor those we lost. As she turned to leave, she saw a group of children playing nearby. They were pretending to be spaceship captains, exploring the galaxy. Su Min smiled. The future looked bright. Earth had proven itself. They were no longer just a small planet in a big galaxy. They were a force to be reckoned with, and they would face whatever came next together.